Thank you. Good to be here. Good morning.
Yeah, it's a lovely bright morning. The sun is shining, so what more can we ask for, really? So, I
Indeed.
suppose you want to ask me a few questions again.
I do, yeah. So I guess to further a bit the subject of connected advice, but rather than talk to, I guess, the benefits, the advantages, and talk a bit about what we've been doing, let's delve into, to begin with, a bit about why it perhaps doesn't always work.
Yeah.
And so, I guess, look, leading in question, let's start with the big one. Why do you think, Paul, that it is often professional advice, advice within our space, doesn't always work?
Oh, it's a real leading question, really, and you could get yourself in a lot of trouble, or you could, with a question to answer like this. But I suppose after doing this for nearly 40 years, there is a pattern that you can easily see. And the pattern is that you get business owners and they build a really, really good business. They build a great reputation. They build a really good team around them. And a lot of the cases, they build a really competent team of advisors around them. Like, you can have a very good accountant, you can have a good tax advisor, you can have a really good financial planner, and all these people are extremely competent in their own areas. And as a business owner, a lot of them are really happy um, with all of those professionals around them and that team they've built around them. But the biggest problem that I see is the issue that nobody really talks to one another in a sense, in the way they should talk to one another. And what I mean by that is that you can have a situation where we're giving some really good tax advice on a particular tax issue that a client has, and we're sitting down and we're going through these details with the client, and the tax advice is really good sound advice based on the information we have. But then on the other side of that, you have the legal team that they have engaged, and they're preparing a will, or they're preparing some legal documentation for these people, and they're not aware of the advice that we've given, or we're not aware of the advice that they've given. And therefore, this can cause a lot of issues. And the client is the person that feels that they have to be the one that's connecting this advice. And that's the reason I think a lot of advice fails from really good people, but they're just not talking and they're not connected.
When I asked that question, Paul, I thought that question could have led to you going on for some time, and the idea that you could write a book on the answer to that sprung to mind, which is very relevant, and I'm sure you'll mention shortly. But I guess what we're saying here is, and your point is, you've got good advisors giving good advice within their fields, but each staying within their lanes,
Yeah.
without necessarily the individual who's willing to step back and ensure that the totality of that advice is in line with all the objectives. And so, next question, Paul, would be around what do we think leads to that inability to get back, and how do we think this ties in with a point that we've made before, which is the understanding of the individual's objectives that sits behind the business?
I suppose, it's the illusion of being well advised. That's the problem that people have. Like, so, you believe, and in a lot of cases they are really well advised. So, in the context of that, it's really difficult, because a lot of people, they've built these advisors over years, and they've built the reputation, and they've built the personal relationship with these advisors. Some of these over 10, 15, 20 longer years, like, we've clients since we started, like, and in the context of that, when you're standing back then, and everybody tries to give the best advice that they have with the facts and the information that they have available, and it falls to somebody to say, who's the connected advisor? So who wants to take the role of that connected advisor role? And what does the role of a connected advisor? What is it? What does it mean? And what actually is the role of a connected advisor? They're the one person that says, right, I'm going to take the responsibility. I put my hand up here, yeah, right. When you put your hand up, you're putting yourself forward. But then on the other side, you have a client putting two hands up, and what's that a sign of? That's a sign of help. It's a
History.
universal sign. If you have two hands up, it's a sign I need help. So the question is, when the two people put their hands up, somebody needs to say yes and help them. And I am no expert in legal matters. Do you know what I mean? I have a really good tax department here. I have a good knowledge of tax, but I'm not an expert in tax. Do you know what I mean? Financial advisory. So you have to allow the experts that they're, and that's not saying that all our experts, everybody should come and use all our experts. You can use your own experts in the context of this, but somebody needs to say, well, I'm going to be the connector for this thing. And I'm going to be the person that says, this is my job, this is my role. But to do that role, you have to have a particular set of skills. And that's the thing. It's not a project management role. You need to have a particular set of skills to do that.
And that as so thinking then from our position as accountants, do we believe that it's reasonable that as accountants and other people practicing within our space, they are the ones that can step back, put their hand up and say, we're going to take control of this. We're going to see the whole piece and we're going to guide our clients through the wider lens of understanding all of their requirements?
Well, I suppose if you're asking yourself, are accountants suited to doing the connected advisor role? It depends on the accountant, and it depends on the practice, and it depends on, like you said, as an accountant, but originally I'm a businessman as well. Do you know what I mean? But as a business owner and a businessman as well, like the idea of connecting everything together for me, to me, it's a natural fit for an accountancy practice, especially in terms of the change in the world to do with accounting and where the future of accountancy practices are going to sit in terms of working with a business owner. So yes, I do believe, because we have a good breadth of knowledge of all the areas, and it's having that understanding that's what's needed. We're trained in taxation. We're trained in the tax elements around investments and pensions and all of that side of it. We're not given investment advice, but we're trained in those areas. So we understand, we can have a conversation with somebody, a competent conversation about that. And once you have that knowledge and understanding, then you ask me, then am I the right person to sit in a position? I feel yes, I am a person that's qualified to sit in the position of a connected advisor, because it's an area that I've spent so much time in. And when you stand back and you look at the stories and the histories, and you look at the real success stories that you've had within your life or within your practice, I can categorically tell you, and I more or less guarantee, if anybody is here, looks at their client base and looks at the people, the connected advisor is the person that you've done that connected advice with the client, are the ones that you have the most successful relationships with, because you are the person that is the most trusted advisor. And that's used a lot. You're a trusted advisor. Who's the most trusted advisor? Who's the connected advisor? It's the same type of, it's the same type of a role. It's this, connected advisor, trusted advisor. They're very much in the same vein. But the connected advisor has to have a special, a special set of skills. And those special set of skills, it's like your man in Taken. I have a special set of skills. I will hunt you down. But it's the same type of that. If you don't have those skills, you're not going to enjoy the job of a connected advisor, and you really need to like that work as well.
I'm glad you mentioned Taken, because I hadn't been able to stop thinking about Liam Neeson since you first mentioned particular set of skills. So I'm glad we got that out of the way.
Yes, yeah. My favorite movies of all time.
I feel on the point about the accountant, the business advisor stepping forward and assuming that role of managing the whole piece and delivering the connected advice, or enabling the environment in which connected advice can be delivered. It feels like we should reference the framework or the structure of compliance that sits within the existing responsibility of an accountant that actually serves to give us the ability to do that. Because whenever we talk about advisory and we want to move more into that advisory space, we want to be more proactive, but the bread and butter doesn't change. The compliance element still exists, and it does serve as an opportunity to engage in regular interaction with our clients, from which it can be the foundation that you move into that position. Is that fair? Do we think that's how we can move into that role if we're not already?
100% is the foundation that lets you move into that position. But the reality is, a financial advisor is coming at it from the aspect of financial advice. A legal advisor is coming at it from the legal side. A tax is coming at it from the taxes side. Do you know what I mean? And a solicitor is coming at it from the. So all of these people are coming at it from their own individual angle. And you're a business owner, you see, and if you're a business owner, you're sitting there confused because the lot of the cases, the business owner is the person who sits and connects all of these, because he's the one I want to ask me. I want to make a will. I have to go talk to my solicitor. But it's then we ask people to hold them. Have you made a will? Is your will tax efficient? Is your will sufficient? Have you made have you made a will for your business? And people go, what's that? But it's the same thing. It's just if something happens to you, what happens to your business? Who steps into that role? And it's the ability to sit in for those questions and understand where to fit into the overall scheme of things. And that's well advised. But then the main thing of all of this side of it is, have you asked the client a question from a family first perspective, which is what we talk about a lot? What are you trying to get? What are you trying to achieve? And that's the ultimate question that needs to be answered. And Connected Advice should deliver that. If Connected Advice only delivers financial savings, tax savings, wealth creation, it's no good. I don't mean it's no good. It's effective for what it does, but it doesn't deliver on the real need that a human being has. And the needs of a human being, like there's 6 basic needs that they have, but in terms of the needs of the human being, like what are you trying to achieve?
Yeah.
Health, wealth, and relationships are the 3 biggest areas, and wealth doesn't necessarily mean financial wealth. So the family first model, the health, wealth, and relationships model, all of that comes back around to the same conversation about who's connecting my dots. That's the real thing.
Yeah, and I know that you previously mentioned this, and it's been talked about a fair bit, but as accountants, the time of COVID presented an evolving or a changing relationship with our clients, whereby we were much more actively engaged with the clients, trying to resolve their problems. And that receded a bit, I think, post-COVID. It was like, we're out of COVID now. We don't necessarily need to engage with our clients in that fashion. But what I will say to promote, the real benefit of this is what we're now seeing is actively taking the approach that we're talking about. We're not just talking about this, we live this approach that we're promoting. We get calls from our clients on questions about everything. So it's fair to say that we are assuming this position that we talk to, and the benefits are obvious to our clients because they'll pick up the phone and they'll talk to us about a hugely broad range of subjects that sit back to us asking these questions about the individual, getting to know the person, their family, their objectives across a wide spectrum of matters. And that's got to be a good thing.
Getting to know the family across a wide spectrum of matters that's Connected Advice. That's the actual thing. And like from talking to me, Dan, that this idea of the pre-COVID and post-COVID advice is, and the COVID during the COVID time, is a bugbear for me specifically because imagine you went into your favorite restaurant, and I know you're a man that likes food, and there's probably going to be chicken involved in it as well, but that's a whole other conversation. Imagine you go into your favorite restaurant and the chef comes out and talks to you, and he sits down with you and he asks you what you thought of the meal, and you have this incredible 11-star wonderful experience. And during COVID times, the accountants tried to provide that 11-star service, but then you get back to your life and everything happens, you go back to normality, and you go back in and you walk in, the chef walks by you and he hardly acknowledges you, and you're going, what have I done here? Like, have I upset him? Have I done something wrong? Like, have I, and it's the expectation level now, and it's the rise of AI, automation, culture, values. We constantly repeating the same conversation, and what we're trying to do is bring this theory of and concept of Connected Advice, because I think into the future, like when we see what's coming down the line, and we see we've a very good insight into, how this digital world is happening, and we've an idea of what is going to happen in the future. But the one thing that's going to protect everybody is these conversations, and the one thing that people are going to want is a conversation with another human being about what they're trying to achieve. And all we're trying to do is get what they're trying to achieve and wrap it around, put a wrapper around it, like the connected advice wrapper. That's it. It's just a big wrapper around this big information, and then just help and have the conversations on a constant basis with the client. And let there be no mistake about this. Connected advice has been of service to your client. No matter what way of life you do it, you just be there and be of service and be helping and be thoughtful and and understand that. We don't get it right every time. Absolutely. Like, this is not a perfect utopian world. Like, we don't get it right every time, but we strive to fall upwards. There's a great book I read called Falling Upwards, and we strive to fall upwards with this and try and get a better understanding of how we can improve that service offering. And the connected advice helps to be well advised and helps the clients to be well advised. So I do believe it's something of the future.
And I guess then, Paul, as a last question from my perspective, but if you're a client now and you're in this position whereby you don't know what you don't know, you might not even know that there's a possibility of receiving this type of, the concept of connected advice. What are you looking out for? How, I guess, twofold. What's the client looking out for from a prospective connected advisor? And what could we be doing to ensure that there is more knowledge or understanding of what's possible?
Well, we build everything through frameworks, and we have a framework there, the clarity framework that we use, and it's getting the clarity around it's that discovery, planning, and execution. You sit down, and the discovery session is the basis of a connected advice session, because you're sitting down trying to understand and listening to the client and trying to adapt and trying to understand what they're trying to achieve from the family first perspective. Like, this connected advice fits brilliantly in with the family first principles, and then it fits brilliantly with the family office principle. Because what it does is it takes the family first principle, which sits up here, then it takes all the advisors together here in the family office scenario, and it wraps up with this connected advice. And that's what it does. It's kind of the three parts of the one, and it's the very same as having a team out there and a coach. Like, there's a lot of really good coaches in under specific particular areas. But what we're talking here is this coaching, this connected advice around the financial aspects, but wrapping it around the personal aspects.
Yeah, and I guess then we can't promote enough the power of asking the questions and listening to the answers. Can we say more than that?
2 ears and one mouth.
Yeah. It's almost like it's every client and every prospective client. I guess it's a bit like a date, isn't it? You need to find out as much as you can.
Well, you need to understand and find out as much as you can, and you need to be interested. And that's a big part of it. You need to have an interest in what's going on. You know what I mean? And you need to have a human effect in what's going on. Like, you just need to be interested in what the client is trying to do. And you need to take the responsibility from the client and take that responsibility yourself. And that's really important. So I'm putting my hand up here saying, I'm the connected advisor. I'm going to take responsibility for this. And, the definition of responsibility is not fault, blame, right or wrong. It's just a state. So if I'm responsible, then I'm the one that's pulling the connected advisors together. I'm the one that's working with the client to make sure that they have and just imagine the absolute benefit of that. I'll give you another example of this. You're building a house, right? And you have so many different areas, and you have plumbers, electricians, carpenters, builders, plasterers, designers, architects, all of those. The connected advisor there. So you imagine at that stressful time when you're trying to get a mortgage, at that stressful time, and you're saying to yourself, oh my God, this is the most stressful thing I'll ever do in my life, right? And then you need somebody there to pull all that. But if I came to you and said, stop, put your hand up now, hold on, I'm going to do all of that for you. Tell me what you want to get out of the way. How would you feel?
I'd feel pretty good. I'd have no chance otherwise. So yeah, I'd feel good.
Well, I'm the same. So yeah. So.
Well, I guess. Yeah, that's probably us, Paul. Thank you very much. It's good to chat through this.
Thank you for anybody that's listening to this. I really, really enjoy these conversations, because one thing, I don't know the questions before we sit down, so it's really good to get the questions live, because I just love it that way. So thanks, Dan, and we'll chat very soon again. Bye for now.
Good day. See you.
done.